Hey, welcome back to Reddit Cheating Wife, the best channel for cheating stories. Like and subscribe to the channel for cheating stories like this.
Caught wife cheating. Now what about her kids? Sorry for the lengthy delay. It had to come out. I, male 52, lost my first wife 10 years ago. At the time, I had 2 kids, who are now 21 and 24. After nearly 3 years, life resumed. My current wife and I met, 38. It all started innocently enough. Basically, I kept running into her in different parts of town. We never actually communicated, but when we did make eye contact, we'd point at one another from a distance and simply grin. Then, as I was having my vehicle serviced, she strolled into the waiting area while hers was being worked on as well. So we eventually had a lengthy discussion. We walked across the street to purchase genuine coffee since service centers were disgusting. We spoke for approximately an hour before I was paged to say my work was finished. I asked if she wanted to meet for lunch one day to continue chatting, and we exchanged phone numbers and a date to meet. We dated for 2 years before getting married. She currently has 2 sons, ages 10 and 14. They moved into my home after 3 years of living with her parents. My daughters adored her. As a big sister, not as a stepmother. Having another adult in the family with 2 adolescent daughters was a gift. Life is wonderful. I adore those guys as if they were my own. I want to adopt them when they are old enough to make their own decisions. My son refers to me as his father. It was hard for the oldest, so I instructed him to call me by what he felt most comfortable with, my first name. The girls addressed her by her given name. Wife is a stay-at-home mom. We assumed she wouldn't want to work until the kids were settled, although she does volunteer at school lunches and other events. Daughter 1 attends college and has now graduated. This morning, the younger daughter graduated. We'll be relocating the remainder of her belongings this weekend. Her ex, I was informed, abandoned them about the time kid number 2 was born and hasn't contacted them since. Her mother is lovely, but she keeps me at arm's length. He is the leader of the pack. I don't believe he wanted anybody else to look after his daughter, only child, and grandchildren. He would chastise me for being too old, not much younger than them. This would happen whenever I was in their presence. I'm not a confrontational person, so I told my wife I'd simply avoid them. I did urge her to keep the connection going since they just live a few streets away. Her ex returns in February of this year, wanting to be a part of their lives. He's dubious at best. This is something I can't say no to. He begins to appear more often. I put a limit that he only visits on weekends so that he doesn't conflict with school and so that we can have some control over his visiting. He visits most weekends, but he spends little time with the kids alone since we try to give him space. I inquire with his wife whether he paid any child support payments while he was away. No. I advised her to speak with him about catching up on any debts he may have and to inquire about giving over rights so that I may adopt. She said that she will speak with him. Our life begins to deteriorate in the first half of March. You see where this is headed, don't you? But I'm definitely when I mention it to my wife, she makes the typical justifications. I've noticed a few differences around the home. My favorite foods have vanished, and I'm missing a few beverages, not a big drinker, just one every now and then. But the major one was that I believed I smelled cannabis. I asked my wife whether she smoked, and because we don't, she hasn't. I assumed the now 14-year-old was there and proposed we speak with him. She says she'll take care of it. A 14-year-old asked me whether I loved my mother around 2 weeks ago. I said yes since I assumed he had a girlfriend. Isn't it time for a discussion? He claims that we constantly sat close and were touching one another in some manner, which made him happy. He inquires as to whether his mother adored his father. I replied that she does on some level, so why ask? He responds that they are always staring at each other, chatting, and caressing. And he's always around. I inquired as to what he meant by all the time, since he was there practically every time they returned home from school and then left. That weekend, I'm in the living room because he's coming over for visitation. He walks in and takes a seat across from me, holding a drink. I raise my head from my book and urge him to assist himself to a drink. He remains silent. I inquire as to why he isn't with the children, as I hear laughter coming from the family room. He said that he may go in for a little while. I assure him I won't drink in front of the kids and that I'll wait until they're in bed. He remains silent. He goes on to say, I'm just here for her. What does it imply? You're referring to my wife? He claims he is not divorced since he never signed documents, hence she remains his wife. I know a court signed off on the divorce since he couldn't be located, which is why it took so long. I ultimately inquire about child support since I had not received a response. He just glanced at me and said he was caught up, and he handed her $15,000 in cash. I never inquired whether she had discussed giving up rights with him. He inquired as to how much it was worth to me. "You've got to be fooling me if you'd sell your children." I told him to go before he could respond. The following day, this past Sunday, the kids were with their grandmother and grandfather. I purchased and installed a camera. I placed it on top of the television. It's really little. It has a view of the entrance door as well as the living room. Motion has been detected. Nothing out of the ordinary until Wednesday about 10 a.m. when the camera activates. I get an alert on my phone. So I'm at work when I receive a notification, and I think it's the wife cleaning up, so I go check. He reappears. She welcomes him in, and they have a lengthy kiss. He begins to grasp her, and she pulls back playfully. They are both laughing, but there is no sound. He takes a seat on the sofa, and she gives him a drink and some food. 10 a.m. she vanishes. She returns a few minutes later, her clothing changed, and she is on her way to school for lunch. They are conversing. More clutching, pushing away, and giggling. She gets up a few minutes later, getting ready to depart. He stands up and her once again. Making some movements, he then postures as if he is praying with his hands clasped. They resit, and she offers him the head. She completes her task and exits the scene. Returns, says something, and then departs. He then watches television and then takes a sleep. Eventually, the screen goes blank. Another signal arrives just after 1 p.m., indicating that she has returned home. They converse, and then they both exit the room. I know they're on their way to the bedroom. I dash home to locate them. They had no idea I was coming. There are the expected hysterics. He slithers away. I inform her that she must go. She claims it was a one-time blunder and that he had only just arrived. She felt lonely since we didn't have, and so forth. I dialed B's. I inquired how frequently he came over, and he said just on weekends. This was an outlier. I showed him the footage of him sleeping. She inquired after he said that he was fatigued. After that, I showed her the BJ. She was speechless. I advised her to gather her belongings since she was leaving. I left and contacted her father to take them in since we were having problems. He, of course, assumes the role of alpha, telling me how I would botch things up, yada blah. I couldn't say anything. Finally, I stopped him, asked again, and he answered yes before resuming his assault on me. I'd had enough, so I told him I'd give him something, and I did, sending the video chopped down to BJ. I instructed him to look at it and call me back if I was mistaken. There was no response. Thursday, I spoke with a lawyer. He assisted with the estate planning following the death of his first wife. I was sent to a partner who specializes in family law, and we will meet on Tuesday to finalize the divorce. He suspected, but did not know for certain, that I would be responsible for child support and alimony since she violated our prenup. I wrote it up before marriage to safeguard my daughters in addition to my inheritance plan. I don't mind the help, I'm happy to do it. It's the lads. So my question or advice is, has anybody else gone through a divorce and been allowed to visit their ex's children, even if they are not yours? How did it work out? The 14-year-old is somewhat susceptible since he will be in high school next year, during formative years. I don't want to watch him go down the drain and end up like his father. Thank you in advance to everyone. Update. I'll try to keep it brief. I've written it 3 times already, and each time I've chopped it down due to length. On Tuesday, I met with my lawyer. We spoke about what I wanted to do. I told him I wanted to be a part of the boy's life. If it means staying married, then be it. I still love the wife but no longer trust her. He recommended that, based on his experience, continuing the marriage would be a sham of one. The boys would suffer as a result of a bad marriage. The prenuptial agreement was broken, and it will be enforced. Wife is not entitled to any financial assistance. He advises that we collaborate to devise a visiting schedule that works for both of us. Child support will be up to me, but whatever we come up with will be seen positively by the court. He went on to say that in certain circumstances, courts have found that a step-parent who has been in the kid's life for a long period and has helped them should pay child support. He didn't believe the judges in our local courts had decided in that manner, but they may at some point. Everything will be more difficult after she hires a lawyer. Before then, get things figured out. He claims that during their weekly partners meeting, they discuss fresh and forthcoming cases. My first attorney solely practiced elder law and estate planning. My new attorney specializes in family law. Criminal and liability are handled by the others. Stay tuned for the next part.